Okay, so we will be responding to the claim that the Electoral College needs to be removed and re-replaced with a popular vote. And the reason given by my opponent is that the Electoral College does not fairly represent the population of the United States. The first response that I'd like to take is at one point my opponent uses the argument that it's not fair because the votes aren't percentagely considered equal, and that the United States is about equality. And I would like to respond with that, with the fact that the Electoral College continues what it was set out to do. We all know that the United States is not a true democracy, it's more of a democratic republic. And according to John Patterson, an attorney, in an article from the Denver Post, says that our system of government incorporates other important principles besides strict majority rule. It preserves a federal republic with states as separate sovereign entities. So just like our expert says, it is not truly about just having more votes. It's more about keeping in mind the states as a whole and protecting states' rights. And also, according to the Huffington Post, the Electoral College ensures the rights of smaller states and stands as an important piece of American Federalist democracy. It's about preserving the Union. It's about keeping the states together. It would be unfair to the smaller states in the United States if we move to a direct popular vote, because the small states would be neglected simply because of that fact. And if we didn't have this kind of system in place, they wouldn't know. They would have no voice. And moving on, my opponents argue that the Electoral College system focuses only on states, and if we move to another system, it would not solve this issue. In fact, it would make it worse. Instead of having attention being placed on strategic states, they would be placed on specific regions. If we move to a popular vote, instead of, for example, instead of just focusing on Ohio, we focus on cities. And 2/3 of the states do not live in a competing state. When election comes around, there's 2/3 of the states are not considered competing states. But if you take the approach of a popular vote, 7/8 of the population does not live in a competing region, which means that in fact, less people would be targeted in the presidential elections than currently. So moving to a popular vote would in fact make the issue worse. As far as third-party votes are concerned, if the current system, it really allocates and makes it easier for a two-party system to operate. My opponent suggests that third-party votes would help the system, but in fact, it would make it worse, because by moving to a popular vote, there would be opportunity for multiple parties to run, which instead of people being upset about the majority leader not being elected, it would decrease that majority. And for example, if we had 3 candidates running, there'd be a chance that with only a little more than 1/3 of the vote that they'd become president. And people, like in the 2000 election, where President Bush won without having the majority rule by 1%, less than 1%, if we had multiple parties running, instead of winning and having the presidency at 49% of the popular vote, there's a chance that we'd have less than 30 or 30 to 35% of the vote. Also, my opponents touched on faithless electors, but it's shown that faithless electors are not a factor. And just to add more detail to that, how the Electoral College works is when a state wins the popular vote, it's up to the Electoral College itself. So for example, for California, they have 55 electors, which means that when in the election itself, when California wins the 55 votes, the states are supposed to have 55 electors that actually vote for the president. And that's where you hear that first to 270 remark, and that's where that comes from. But in the case of faithless electors, that's when someone that is supposed to vote for the popular vote leader does not. And but however, these are not a factor, according to William C. Kimberling from the National Clearinghouse on Election Administration. There have only been 7 faithless electors in U.S. history. They have never changed the outcome of an election. Also, according to the Huffington Post, 27 states have laws on the books that require electors to vote for the party's candidate if that candidate gets a majority of the state's popular vote, and this number of states is on the rise. So this will no longer be an issue if it follows the current pattern. Faithless electors will be obsolete and no longer be an issue with the Electoral College system. In conclusion, the current system is the best because it represents the nation as a whole, and by protecting the small states and by ensuring a sturdy two-party system, and it is the most fair way to elect the leader of this nation. Thank you.